So when Chad and Economade and I got together and talked about the theme for the show, and we were looking for the name for the show, a couple of themes came forward. One was this idea, this sort of no one messes with my kid idea that we felt was an important part of what was missing. And we landed on Requiem at the Bridge because we felt like there were things that needed to be said about children that had been lost, and we feel passionately about that. But I will say that this next piece speaks, as Chad's piece just did, a little bit to that nobody messes with my kid sort of thing. So this is, you'll hear, if you come to spoken word shows, you'll hear work from all three of us that you may have heard before, because the fact is we've all been writing this work for years. It didn't take this recent series of tragedies to show up. So this is called Reclaiming Queer. My mom always told me never to hand someone the stick to beat me with. And I've lived by that advice. But I'm now taking it a step further, and I'm reclaiming the stick that gay people handed over decades ago. I'm reclaiming the word queer from the heterosexists and homophobes who have used it for years and with impunity to beat on people like us, often with brutal results. I'm reclaiming queer for my friends who are, respectfully, a hot trans man and a gorgeous femme lesbian, but who are primarily in love and crafting a life together. And I hang out with them and I laugh with them and I expect to grow old with them, but I don't expect them to land on a label. I'm reclaiming queer for my recently happily married friend Mark, who has now unearthed impulses and orientations that surprise and scare him a little on some days and a lot on some days, but refusing to be limited by his leftover from high school buddies, his family, or even his own life story. He is blazing new territory by dating John on Friday and Marsha on Saturday, just so he can be reflected in their eyes. There are worse ways to find yourself. I'm reclaiming queer for the happily heterosexual woman who sees another woman on the bus. And for the entire 22-minute length of her bus ride home to her husband and new baby wonders what it would be like to be in love with that woman. I'm reclaiming queer for the entire Republican Party. But mostly for the formers: Congressman Mark Foley, Mayor Jim West, Evangelical Ted Haggard, Representative Richard Curtis, College Republican Glenn Murphy, and Senator Larry Craig. Each one entirely unable to reconcile the shame-filled wasteland between his lust and his homophobia. Their struggle makes mine harder, but I wouldn't take it away from a single one of them. I'm reclaiming queer for the family of a dead young man, because the not very Reverend Fred Phelps wants to put a statue in Casper, Wyoming, with a plaque that reads, "Matthew Shepard entered hell on October 12, 1998. This way, he believes, the people of Wyoming, some of whose children beat Matthew with queer, beat him with the butt of a pistol, then tied him to a split rail fence to die, will fear the lesson of a young man living his life as if he had a right to it." I'm reclaiming queer for myself. Yeah. Because 10 years ago, in a conversation with a bewitching woman, I got a tiny tingle in a place that had only ever tingled for men, and it shocked and delighted me like a quick peek through the window of a much larger house than the one I live in now. But mostly, I'm reclaiming queer because coming out remains an act of defiance and isolation instead of an act of love. And because there's at least one person within the sound of my voice right now whose own little bit of queer is crying out to be heard. Tonight, we hear you. Even though there are still mothers who hide their children from the horrors of homosexuals. Even though there are still people within the sound of my voice who still see fire and still hear brimstone when they hear me. Because if we reclaim all of the sticks, nobody else has to get beaten. Thank you.